I do believe we are live. Hello, and welcome to Forever After That, where we hold space for those who have passed and are now in spirit form. I have some very special guests tonight. I have Erin Robertson, who has been with us before on Silent Mystics a couple of weeks ago, told us all about her communication skills and also some of her experiences with spirit. And we also have ShaRon Rhea. And ShaRon, I think that I'm going to give it over to you for a minute to tell us all about yourself because I cannot keep all of that in my head tonight. I'm very sorry. It's your turn.
Absolutely, no worries. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I'm ShaRon Rhea, and I'm here in usually very sunny and hot Arizona, but we have a little bit of cloud covering right now. I am a family relationship and communication coach. That's what I've been running my business as for about 9 years. And in that vein, I work with families who are moving through transitions. Families raising teens, there's a little bit of stress there sometimes. Families after divorce, where you're trying to collaborate again in a new space. Grandparents doing that precious job of raising their grandkids, and absolutely the fathers that are taking on a bigger role in the family. And the foundation of how I live and how I coach is my global movement offering to the world called No Judgment, Just Love. And I'm finding that that is a very relevant heading for the conversations that are happening in our world. Thank
Most
you.
definitely. Most definitely. I think that's the greatest title, tagline, whatever. That just solves all the world's problems right there. No judgment, just love. Stop judging one another. We're all different. We're meant to be different. It's a beautiful way to look at life when you just turn off that judgment lens and turn it over to love and look at it a little bit differently, isn't it? So, Erin, it's your turn. I want you to tell us all about yourself. You're building a new practice with your animal communication skills, and I'm just watching you blossom. You make me feel like I'm like a proud mama watching you. So, can you tell us a little bit what you're up to right now?
Yeah, sure. I'm Erin, and I am in very cold New Zealand right now, middle of winter. And I have literally just become self-employed. I handed in my resignation letter yesterday, and I am a self-employed animal communicator and Reiki healer.
Yeah.
This has been, well, I was born being able to communicate with animals telepathically. And then the culture of humans, I realized it wasn't normal. So I tried to dull it down and try to fit in to society, and that was a massive failure. And then when I turned about 20, I got a job at a doggy daycare, and my communication skills skyrocketed, and I just knew that they knew what I was telling them and talking to them, and they could talk back to me, and we could fill a whole hour of coincidences that have happened with me and the dogs. But then that company got taken over by another doggy daycare, which was still, again, no judgment. Mm-hmm. They worked more on the science-based neurological facts, how a dog thinks, physically wise, mentally wise, training wise. They did use positive reinforcement, so that's good. But it was very physical, and what they thought that a dog was doing physically wise, I translated that completely different from my sensing, feeling, intuition ways of what I thought the dogs were and why they were doing things. So I left. And then in 2018 or 2017, a cat came into my life, a big black cat. He came around the neighborhood, and his mating call sounded like he was saying a big long hello, like hello. And so we nicknamed him Hello, and that just stuck. And he slept in our carport, and we gave him food. We didn't pressure him. We just gave him space and let him know that he'd always have food here and a warm, semi-warm place to sleep in our carport. And it took about 9 months from that point to him wanting to be inside with us. Like, the communication took 9 months. And then cat rescue, he went missing for 2 weeks, and he came back with his ear tipped, so he's been trapped, neutered and returned. And ever since then he became more and more friendly, and he's turned into a big mama's boy, and he sleeps in my bed, and he's turned into my teacher and tough love pushy teacher on me getting back into communication. And I've named my business Hello Animal Communication Healing, connecting with a familiar otherness.
That's so incredible. I can't even tell you how powerful that name is. When you sent me a copy of your business card and I looked at it, I was like, oh yes, that is so perfect. You're so in tune. The way that you did that is excellent. So I think it's interesting the way that, give us just one example. I know you got a whole bunch of stories, and a lot of people saw you on Silent Mystics. I'm sleepy. Silent Mystics. And they heard these stories, but there's some of your stories are so interesting. The way that you hear and communicate with animals in a way, like we think that we got an idea, okay, let me give you a better example. Just last week, some of you who know me have heard me lamenting because we have kept this little 3-legged dog at our house. I've had her for a long time. My daughter moved out with the dog. She brought her back. We have this cat that we took in from the Humane Society, who believes that this is her kingdom and that no one should ever bring any kind of other animal into this house, into her kingdom. This is hers. She belongs here. She owns it. We bring in this doggy, and this poor little doggy is like the little animal that's running through the forest with the wild animal right on its back all the time. That cat is after it all the time. So I contact Erin. I'm like, Erin, please, what do you charge? I need help. I gotta get these animals so that they don't try to, the little doggy, literally, she got her here one day right over her eye, and she was bleeding right when we first brought the dog in. So it wasn't like, she's tiny. She's 5 pounds. The cat outweighs her. She's a little chunky. So it's really a dangerous situation in some ways. So Erin gave me a really great report, helped me to understand this cat and where she's coming from better. Really worked a little bit with Rue, even though Rue is kind of a live wire. I do notice that Rue is calmer this week. Rue seems more settled. And somehow a week later, these animals have decided that they're okay. They're going to get along. The cat still treats her like a play toy and runs up behind her and smacks her, but she doesn't smack her hard. Now she's a toy. So you prove to me how effective the work is that you do. And so, maybe go back a little bit further. This is what you're doing now, but when you were little and you decided to shut yourself down, tell us about that, about at what point you realized that you were actually hearing these animals, and then decided, in order to fit into society, because I believe this will play into ShaRon Rhea. I believe this will all play into that. At what point did you decide that you had to try to fit into society and shut down your gifts?
When I went into kindergarten. Do you have kindergarten?
Yeah, we have kindergarten here too.
Yeah. So about 4, like literally first day of kindergarten, I'm like, okay, I'm different. I can remember when I was 1 year old, I was on my grandma and granddad's farm, and I've got photographic evidence of this moment. I was on my grandma's lap. My granddad was holding a baby lamb, and my dad was taking the photo. And I went to pet this lamb, And I can remember the lamb telling me, like I heard it in English language, but it must have just been my first language, I suppose. He said to me that he'd rather me not pet him right now because he's a bit anxious. He doesn't really know what's going on. He just needs some time. And so I backed off a bit. And then after a while, he was like, okay, you met that need. You must be all right. You can pet me now if you want. And so I started petting him again. And I still remember that to this day. And when I feel like, oh, it's not working, or my confidence gets knocked on a communication, I just think back to that and be like, I was born with that. Like, I can do it. But when I went to kindergarten and primary school, I just realized that what I thought was normal was not, it's not what people do. And so I tried to fit in and be popular and get the kids to like me, and it didn't really help that I'm 6'2", my dad's 6'4", so I was about a head and a half taller than everyone else in the classroom, so that kind of didn't help either. But looking back on it now, I think it did help for me because it was so traumatic, I suppose, trying to fit into human society. I kind of have made my own little world, and I haven't really gotten right into human society. And I think that has protected my gifts and been able to be like, this is what the world should be like, and not our human ways of doing things, which are totally opposite to what nature does.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really profound when you think about it. I'm hearing you. It's like we look at humans, look at like we're like we rule. You know, we get to say what the animals have to do, when they're going to have to do it, how we're going to treat them, which ones we're going to eat, which ones we're going to, whatever we're going to do. We think that we're the ones that are control of the planet. We can decide what we want to do to the planet. We can mistreat the planet. We can mistreat each other. We've got this idea. And then it goes back to someone that's gifted the way that you are, that is actually hearing. You're actually hearing, paying attention to these animals and what they have to say. And how do you interpret, just for, I don't know how you're going to feel about this question, but animals are not, do you ever sense any kind of like racism or anything like they're choosing other than what's nature? Like I'm the meat eater and you're the, I got to eat you, that kind of stuff. But as far as them just looking at someone and saying, no, I don't like that one because there's something different about that one. Do you ever notice that? Do you feel like that's something in the animal kingdom, or is that pretty much just us humans?
This ties in with the no judgment thing. Animals have no judgment. They don't judge. They just sense and feel what is in the moment.
Right.
And react from that. I'm going to unshamelessly name drop. There's a lady that I'm following called Kerry Lake, and she has opened my eyes. It was like, finding her was like, thank goodness someone thinks like I do. And yeah, she has confirmed to me what I've thought about animals my whole life, that they don't judge, that they just live in the moment. They just work from energy. And they don't want to get, they don't want to do, they don't manipulate, they don't lie, they can't lie, and we can't lie to them. And it's just how nature should be, how we should be.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Thank you for that, because that's a different, I don't think many of us look at animals that way, do we? We don't take the time. we're so busy judging each other, and we're so busy judging the animal. We get on that kick and we don't really, we're not looking at it the right way, are we? Animals are way ahead of us. I love how people think that somehow we're more advanced than animals. And I'm like, nope, you got that all wrong. You are so wrong. So, ShaRon, give me something. What are you thinking? That's kind of beautiful.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful, and I I think that we get comfortable with a little arrogance of language, that just because animals and plants and nature speaks a different language, that it's not respected enough by many of us. With living the message of no judgment and just love, and having cats. So I love that you had cats. I'm more of a kitty cat person than the puppies. I find that they teach me more than I can teach them when I recognize they are valuable, that they have a soul, that they have a purpose. And that's to just be, like you said, Erin, unconditional. Just here it is. This is my space. Maybe that animal came into my space. I'm not comfortable with that. Or especially the kindness of that lamb to let you know, not right now. It's gonna make me a little teary. But if we could receive that, even if we can't hear the words in English like you do, Erin, we can receive the energy if we calm down, release our need to be superior, and see them as precious. I lived in a home that was by a wash where there were way more scorpions than I would like to talk about, and and snakes. And I don't like either one of those guys. I didn't quite fully come to peace with the snakes yet, but the scorpions, people here, they take a shoe and they squish them, or they take a broom and they squish them, or they set them on fire. And somewhere in my spirit, after watching the birds, I realized everybody deserves to be here. They were here way before I was with this house. So when they came into the house, I had a little conversation. I said, "Oh, here you are again. I don't really enjoy us living in the same space. Can I scoop you up and take you outside?" And I would go get a cup, and I'd get, something underneath, and I'd scoop them up and take them outside. And once there was a pregnant one with a bunch of babies on her back, and I'm like, "Oh no, sweet one." You have got to go live outside where you're going to feel more comfortable, and so am I. So I feel like we all have the opportunity to listen to the trees, to hear our furniture. Every time I come in the house, I welcome my house. "Hey, I'm home. I'm happy to see you." Everything has an energy. Everything wants to belong. So thank you, Erin, for being a translator for lots of us who have animals, to help us recognize they're not that different. They're just a little furry or come in a different package, but their souls are similar.
Yeah. Mm.
And they're so feeling, and they're so loving, and they're so innocent, and to do the things that we do, the atrocities that we do, and yet they keep on loving. It's like they just, no matter what people do, it's like they just keep, looking beyond, and they keep pulling right back. That's all they know. That's all they know is that love. So thank you for sharing that. What else do you got? I know I try to pull this. Let me pull this back in, because I'm getting the whisper in my ear, because we all know that forever after that, this is Steve. And Erin showed up. For those of you who don't know, Steve's nickname was Batman. So Erin was kind enough. She's representing tonight. And Steve is thrilled beyond measure that you're representing. Yes. He's like, woohoo, the Batman. Thank you for doing that, Erin. And it kind of reminds me too. I'm like, let me refocus. Yes, it's your show too. So as you're talking, he was reminding me, truly, I don't know where I cut off and he starts most of the time. This man was always so kind to animals. He just absolutely, it was like, I called him the cat whisperer. He had one cat. When I met him, this cat was at least 20, 21 years old, maybe older. They didn't know how old she was when he got her. And she looked like a caricature. She was the cutest thing, but she lived almost forever. She lived until she had to be at least 26, 27 years old. And I think it's because he was so understanding, like what I would consider. He wasn't as good at hearing the cats as you were, Erin, or he didn't tell me if he was. Maybe he was. He knew just how to hold that cat. He knew just what she wanted before she'd ask. She lived forever because she loved him so much, because he was such a giving, loving soul. And so when you and I connected, and I don't remember what it was that actually pushed you in my direction, probably Steve and Nick, because you've also got your own special soul that stays close to you, that you connected to through animals also. And I don't know if you want to share a little bit of that tonight before we get moving into our current events, but we've got a little more time on that. So I'll give the floor back to you.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that this morning, like how did we actually meet? And I think it was Paul Warostek putting up your videos. And I was like, I like that. And then you started talking about Steve, and then my good friend Nick passed away, and I was having the same experiences that you were with Steve, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not going crazy, maybe I'm not insane, maybe this is actually happening and actually a thing. But yeah, I met a guy called Nick when I was working at the doggy daycare in 2015, and I'd spiritually awakened in April of 2015, and he must have come a couple of months after that, which is a bit creepy. And and he came in with his big Ridgeback Lincoln, and he needed Lincoln to come in because his doggy friend had passed away, and they could count the hours on his hand of how many hours they've been away together. And Lincoln was beside himself, throwing himself out windows trying to look for her. So I let Lincoln come in. He was entire, not allowed entire males, but I made an exception. And Lincoln was fine. And since then, me and Nick just clicked. He liked the fact that I went against the rules. He was a bit cheeky like that. And I was real and honest and authentic with him, and he was real honest and authentic, and found out that he just loved animals, and like to the point where he would cry if he found a dead hedgehog in his yard. Like, he'd feed the hedgehogs, and whenever I see hedgehogs, like hedgehogs and rainbows, that's my thing with him.
Imagine the rainbows.
Yeah. And he, a couple of months after that, unfortunately, his mum committed suicide, and his drinking got out of control, and he passed away in August 2018. But the day before I found out that he passed away, I went to a spiritual expo here in Christchurch, and then I got drawn to go up the hills and have a wee, because I like hill driving fast around hills. And I went walking around, it's called Godly Head, and to the spiritual expo I saw a rainbow, and walking around the walking track I saw 3 more rainbows.
Wow.
And when I got back to my car, I can remember it was 1:11 p.m. on the dashboard. So yeah, he's rainbow hedgehog man. And when he passed away, for the next 3 days, I could see him as his spirit looking at his body in the bed where he died, looking at me, going, this is a bit of a crazy dream, isn't it? And it took about 3 days for him to figure out that it's not a dream. And yeah, he's been with me, helping me ever since. And I've kind of, with my animal communication, he's one of my helpers with animal communication. And before Hello came along, a black cat, I had a white cat called Lily, and she comes in and helps me too. And she's with Nick. And sometimes I bring in Steve as well. And she's always with Steve. So that's funny that the cat likes Steve.
Well,
So,
I
yeah.
just told you about Steve's connection to cats. As a matter of fact, my nickname was Catwoman. Like he attracted me to him. I've always been this type to just snuggle all the time, and I'm always cold, and he was always warm, so I would snuggle with him because I wanted his body heat. I'm a heat seeker, so he always called me a cat because I acted like a cat, I guess. So there was always that connection to cats with Steve. So the fact that he's hanging around your cats, or your cats want to spend time with him, makes perfect sense. He's got that perfect calming. I can't describe it, and that doesn't go away. He's still just as silly. If I could tell you the stories that, people think, oh, they just go far away. We don't have them around us anymore. For a little while, I felt that, and I was like, God, so hard. It's so hard. It's so difficult losing a physical person that way, somebody that you're that in love with. But he's still, it'll be 4 years in September since he passed. And he still comes back at me with silly stuff. And yesterday he hit me really hard. I've told people in the playground this. It made me crazy what he did yesterday. When he was still in physical form, he liked to make me laugh. I have very ticklish feet, and it used to drive me crazy. He would say, I'm looking for toe fuzzies, and he would tickle my feet, and it would drive me crazy. And a couple times he even got kicked in the face. I didn't mean to. It's just my reaction. He would do it because here I'm raising 6 kids. I was stressed out. 3 more kids besides that. I was super stressed out back when I was with him. And he liked to make me laugh. Well, yesterday, I'm like trying to get ready, and all of a sudden, I hear the bunny hop song, and I'm like, what in the world? I haven't listened to the bunny hop since I was a kid. Why is this playing in my head? And it played in my head over and over and over and over again, and it wouldn't go out. This morning, yesterday, I was like, seriously, I had other people around me, and they're like, what is wrong with her? I just kept, I kept singing this silly song. And finally, I was like, Steve, please stop. I don't know what this is, but you got to stop. Because he comes to many people, not just me. He comes to a lot of my friends through music. And so this song would not go out of my head. Finally, today, I'm on the playground doing the show this morning, and I'm like, I got it. That's his version of toe fuzzies. He knows that it's driving me crazy. He knows that it makes me laugh. And so he's going to put silly songs in my head just so that I can say, Steve, please stop. Please stop doing that. And I've had a serious talk with him about not necessarily, he's trying to remind us all. He comes through with messages like that. He's trying to remind me right now, there's a lot going on for all of us. We're getting really, really busy. We're coming back out of all this stuff. We've gotten really, really busy with life again. And he's like, all right, don't forget to play. This is meant to be fun. We did not come back out of this virus and all this stuff to go right back to the old status quo. We're supposed to be like coming back out going like you, Erin. You didn't go back to work. You resigned, and you are building this business that is all around what you were born to do. Truly, you were born to do this, and you found yourself during this quiet time. You just said, okay, I got to do this. That's what Steve does. Even though it's silly and it makes me laugh, he comes back in to make sure that we remember that we're not going back to the old ways of doing things, that what we are called to do should feel good and should feel fun, and we should be laughing. And don't forget, he's like, don't forget to dance. And I'm like, okay, I don't dance well, but I'll dance too. So that's Steve's little ShaRon. I told you get to meet him. That's his little part tonight, is don't forget. Let's enjoy life. And let's also make sure that we are standing up and doing things differently than we have been for all of these eons of generations. And that's where I kind of turn this show over to you, ShaRon, because this is an important show. Half of it, we're about at the halfway point. I want us to spend some time considering the things that are going on in the world right now. after the show, directly after, the Zoom room will be opened up to what ShaRon calls the comfy couch. And there will be time for anyone that's watching the show, if you want to have your voice heard without judgment, no judgment, only love, you can come into that comfy couch forum, is what we would probably call it. And you get a chance to, everybody else turns off their mics and nobody's going to talk over you. And you get to talk and you get to tell and express yourself. And then maybe by the end of it, we learn how we can become a part of the solution to all these things that are going on, all this unrest. So ShaRon, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you for a little bit, and you can tell what you're doing right now to make some changes.
Thank you. This was wonderful. I really appreciate you, Erin, sharing about how precious the animals are and how you communicate with them and how they really want us to, by their example, recognize it's the moments that we have. And we don't have the past, we don't have the future, it's just now. And if we could respond, because I think what's happening a lot right now is people are reacting to conversations that hurt or that are insightful. And that's kind of human. You know, we have pain, we've had things that happen, and we can't lick our wounds and go forward. We kind of sit with it a little bit, and it becomes often a sore that when a word comes or something like the injustice that's happening in our world touches it, we just want to lash out because that pain hasn't been recognized. And that's really the goal for the Comfy Couch opportunities, is to have not a lot of people, maybe 10 or less, so everyone gets a full opportunity to share what's on their heart, what's in their minds, in a safe and private, it's not going to be recorded space, so that a couple of things happen. One, it's valuable because I work a lot with parents of teenagers, parents of little kids, and often parents are just like with their children as they are with animals. They think they're the leader and they have to tell the kids what to do. And in doing that, we kind of often stifle our children's voices. We don't give them an opportunity to finish their thoughts. And that's how a brain develops, is by completing a thought and in repetition. So in this space, you'll have the opportunity to really hear what your thoughts are, because when they're inside, you have an awareness, but when you speak them out loud and actually hear what you're saying uninterrupted, and knowing that no one's going to challenge you, no one's going to try and change your mind, we just want to listen. Mm-hmm. So that's the Comfy Couch. Now, what's going on in our country, to me, is all in divine timing and in divine way. We had, we can go back to all the things. There was the Me Too, and then there was impeachment, and there was COVID, and now there's the Black Lives Matter. And each one is positioned, I think COVID especially, to give us that pause, where whether we took the opportunity or not, our souls were pushing or nudging us to either be calmer or be more active, or recognize you're in a relationship that you adore. You just didn't have time to know that, or one that you really adore a lot less. And so now it's time to figure out what you do with that. And so we were sequestered for so long that when the injustice that we saw in Mr. Floyd videotaped, it is not new, unfortunately. Those things happen unviewed by many people all over, not only the country, but the world, as I seek out other people to listen to around the world as to what their experiences are. There's racial injustice everywhere. And when you see it live happening, it hits a point that triggers whatever was already inside you. And by being sequestered, that gives you permission to go out and protest, to go out and speak. And it was so empowering for me, because I lived through the 60s civil rights era, to see the world coming together on this, saying, no, we this is not who we are. Mm-hmm. And we cannot continue to be silent. Mm-hmm. I also recognize that there is a phrase that people are using that kind of hurts me when I hear it. And it's, if you're not vocal and speaking out, then you're commiserate or part of the problem. Now, I recognize that from, like I said, my time in the 60s, where you really did need to speak out. And if you didn't, you were either afraid for your life, as we are right now. Like I said, it's not really changed. But I want to give pause to our vocabulary and pause to the phrases that we use. Because as a communication specialist with not just families, but even myself, our words can be empowering, or our words can harm, or our words can really incite.
Mhm.
And people hear words based on their own experiences with those words. And so, in this conversation of how do we change what we know is wrong, what we know is inhuman, what we know is unjust, what we know is a racial bias, I feel it's important to recognize our words. Because Black Lives Matter means something to me, different to you. Sometimes it's a rallying call. Yes, we need to be heard, we need to be seen, and we have not been. On the flip side, it is a tender place where people are saying, wait a second, all lives matter. Well, of course they do. I mean, of course they do. But each group has had its moment in the sun where their lives didn't matter. Our precious Native Americans, Asians in our country, Hispanics in our country, women in our country, handicapped. I mean, we could go on and on and on.
Mhm.
And so it's valuable to recognize that that word is not exclusive of others. It's just a highlight that we're on fire right now. So in that vein, that is also why the comfy couch to me is so valuable. So people can hear what they're thinking and what they're saying. I've had an opportunity, Erin and Diana, over the past week, because of what I feel is my gift to the world, which is unconditional allowance.
Mhm.
And I had to learn how to give that to myself first, because I know you can't give what you don't have. And I'm still learning every day. But it's different to me than unconditional love, because unconditional allowance, in my view, and defined by no judgment, just love, is that we allow every person to be who they are at that moment, with no need to correct them, to judge them, no matter what their behavior is. That's the freedom, that's the peace that I think we get to decide if we can accommodate that in our world. Because people are still going to be people, and they're going to do things that upset you and piss you off and make you joyful.
Yeah.
And we need the range here so that we can choose, well, you know what? Your behavior isn't for me, so I'm going to allow you to be over there and I'm going to be over here. If I choose that there is something I want to do to help you see what you're doing is harming others, that's my choice. Then I get to choose how I feel about doing that. So back to that phrase of, if you're silent, you're part of the problem. I'm silent to the world because I'm doing this. This is my place. So that assumption that if I'm not speaking out, and I have had a voice, because No Judgment, Just Love is 6 years, celebrated my anniversary this year. There are people around the world that know who I am, that resonate immediately with the message, that are trying to practice it. So I can well guess that some are looking for me to speak out. I don't quite know what I want to say yet. I'm still gathering information, and these comfy couches are helping me gather the information.
That's great.
So be aware and be tender.
Right. Pay attention. Listen more. You know, that's what you're doing right now. You're paying attention. You're listening. We so often just want to be heard. Like, I see the world this way, and I just want to tell the world how I feel. What happens when we back off, when we start paying attention, and we really hear each other without judgment, like you said? I'm not going to judge you. I just want to hear. And I think that's been something for me through this whole movement right now, was to wait, slow down. I see things the way that I see them because I'm a white woman. I have children. I have, this is the way this, my filter. That's the way I was raised. I have a different way of looking at things than somebody else does. And that doesn't make my way right. It doesn't make my way wrong. It just makes my way my way. It's my way of looking at it. And I can listen to you and I can listen to Erin and I can say, wait a minute, wait, let me take that pause. Maybe there's another way to see this. Maybe that's really important. Maybe I got weird.
Yeah, you're in the sun.
It was like right on my nose.
And Erin, Diana, can I just say quickly that I'm glad you brought up the pause, because as we're speaking about no judgment, some people might be thinking, but I judge. And of course you judge. We all judge. That's how we live. That's how we see the world. It's not the judgment that matters. It's what you think, what you say, or what you do after you've made that judgment. And that pause that you speak about, Diana, is the key. Because when you judge, and you will, when you're listening in this comfy couch forum, or where you're listening to the news, or your sibling, or even the animals, there's a pause that is valuable to say, okay, how do I want to respond to what my judgment was or what I just heard?
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to look at it. It's so nice, and you force us to take the pause too and look at it that way. It's like, why are we so reactive? We don't need to be so reactive. At a soul level, we're not reactive. That is purely your ego that's coming from that place of fear, or it's all fear related, really. We've only got fear, we've got love, and when we're so reactive, we're coming from that place of fear. Somebody's different than me. Somebody might take my things. Somebody might overpower me. Somebody might hurt me, whatever. It's always fear-based, and when we can pull out of that and just try to, for a little bit, just be in that other lens, that lens of love, and look on them and just, okay, let me really hear you. Let me really understand. Let me try to do my best to try to see. And I do, just from this time, the past couple of weeks, everything that's been going on, I see it differently than I did before. This has opened my eyes to really pay attention. And I hope I really hope that this time, watching it being such a powerful movement, I hope that we come out of this very different than when we went into it. Erin, we talked a little bit earlier about a story with you too, about Christchurch, New Zealand, where you are, and an event a couple of years ago that happened there that's really made a change. And I want to kind of go back to that with you, because I think that will come back into this whole thing. It'll connect back in. So can you tell us about that event for a little bit?
Yeah, it was the mosque shootings attacks in Christchurch, March 15th, 2019. It was literally down the road from me, one of them. He went to the Linwood Mosque, and then he went over to the Al Noor Mosque in Riccarton, and he shot and killed 51 people, and heaps of other people got injured as well. And it just highlighted how ingrained racism is to people that aren't white. And it is, I think it's based on they look different, they think different. So what you don't know, you fear, and what you fear, if you go through with that fear, is obviously, in my opinion, what happened on that day. And what came out of that with the amazing Auntie Jacinda, as we call her, she cracked down with empathy and action, and she started a GoFundMe page which had millions of dollars in a couple of days for the people. And she took away the guns. She was like, nah, took away the guns. It's as easy as that. We don't need them. You don't need a semi-automatic rifle. You don't need one. And it has given me, speak from the I, an opportunity to just see into another culture. Like for me, I've grown up, I don't think I'm racist, but I'm still open to seeing if I'm wrong or my ways of thinking are wrong or anything. But growing up, I don't think I saw differences. Like there were so many Black people that I loved. Like growing up, there was a TV show called Touched by an Angel, and Tess of Touched by an Angel. I loved her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was real young watching that. And then there was Oprah Winfrey, and there were so many Black people that I was like, they're cool. Like, they're awesome. And so I never really understood why you would not like that culture.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm still with all this Black Lives Matter thing and like the different sides of Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter and everything. It has given me a chance to actually see both sides and actually see what resonates with me and what doesn't, and what fits with me. And like ShaRon said, at the start I was a bit, as an Aries, I came in a bit guns blazing, but now now I've stepped back and I'm actually just thinking and watching, and what I do, I know will help in some way with this animal communication, getting back to nature and getting back to the root of what being human actually is. And yeah, I want to do that through this animal communication.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I love that, because I think that there's so many ways, it's like now you're pointing out, we've got, this is racism as far as the Black culture, or Black, different color skins right now. But I know for those of us who have had different abilities, that's also something, we've been hiding in the closet, is what I would say, is we so many times, so many different, it's like you had there, it was not the skin color that caused the unrest or the violence. It was the different religion. There's so many different ways. And so I think all of us can relate in some way where we have felt like maybe we were ostracized, we were on the outside. So if nothing else, we got to be able to at least sense what it's like to be in a position where there's lack of acceptance, where we just feel different. We feel on the outside, especially just being in school. There's always something, so we can always relate. And so I just feel like I'm excited to have this comfy couch. I want to see all these. If you got anything, it doesn't just have to be, if you want to participate in this, if if you're experiencing things in this current event, if you are having feelings on it and you're really having a strong opinion, surely come on in and share it. If you've had experiences where you were mistreated because of something else, whatever it is, whatever has made you feel different, whatever kind of opinions you've got there, this is still a place. Is that true, ShaRon?
Absolutely, it's true. Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that are triggered right now with the racism, Black Lives Matter conversation on all sides. Whether you happen to be a non-color person and you're thinking I'm not racist, but then you realize, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or maybe I said this that bothered someone, or you're on a side where you are a skin color that you can't hide in the closet. I mean, it's on me every single day. And so, yes, this is a conversation to be able to give voice to what you're feeling.
Yeah, that's excellent. Hold on, I'm falling apart on you guys. Just hang with me. I'm taking some crazy things right now. So, tell me, hold on. There. When you get together with things like this, and we were talking about it, ShaRon, I'm very sorry. I've got a speaker and my microphone may be gone in a minute. It's dropping to the floor.
Okay.
We
can still hear you.
Okay. we were having a conversation with Erin too, because I think we kind of skipped over that, and I don't want to get into politics and who believes we should have this and who believes should have that, because it is very touchy. But this the violence that we've got going on, and the fact that she lives in a country where suddenly these guns are gone. Like, what's the difference? How does that? Erin, could you just give us? Do you sense? Is there? I haven't been following current events, and it's been a while since your country decided that it was time to pull these out of the public's hands. Have you noticed? Do you know? Do you watch that? Is there a lowering of violence in the country in general?
When it first happened, there was an increase of people. Like, there was so many stories on the news of people who actually, when they saw racism and people like saying racist things to Muslim people or people of color, like on buses or on the streets, or just being mean, there were so many reports of people like stepping up and saying that's not okay, and it made the news. There were so many incidents of that. I don't know if it was because it was just topical, or if they were just reporting it just because that's what was happening, but there were so many incidences of that. And a lot of people willingly gave up their guns. Like, they had little shops, I guess, like places where you can take your guns and get your money back for them. And there were a lot of people who gave up their guns, like in the first couple of weeks, couple of months. Mm-hmm. But recently there's been a bit of an uprising because of that. Like, the people have given up their guns, but now the government have trialled police to have semi-automatic rifles. Like, our police never had guns.
Oh, that's not necessarily.
I know. But yeah, I don't think that's going ahead because it wasn't done properly. There were just people the police were going to like traffic stops with semi-automatic rifles, and people were just not happy about that. So I don't think that's going to go ahead, which is a good thing. Yeah.
So there's not really a great solution to that. There probably won't be. There probably won't be a great solution to that in the current state that we're in, but it's interesting to see in your country. I'm intrigued by that to see, because we're all questioning that. That's one of the things that's out there and about, what do we do about this violence? And it's funny now, as you look at the current events, we've had way fewer school shootings. We've had all this less violence in the world because we've all been grounded, because the universe said, guess what? You're going to take a big time out. You're going to spend time in that time out in the corner with your dunce cap on, and you're going to look at yourself. And then what happened was, because we had this big time out, then we see all of a sudden this happens with George Floyd, and all of a sudden we've got these kids that have been just like stuck at home with their parents. They're riled up. They're suddenly these kids that wanted to do nothing but sit around and play violent. Well, it was violent. They wanted to sit around and play their video games. They really weren't that engaged in current events. And then they had to stay home. They were pulled out of the public schools. They had to spend time with their families, and the whole energy of it has changed. And these kids they've found their voices. I'm so impressed. I know, ShaRon, you're the same way. It's like these kids, we just thought they were like in their bedrooms playing video games, and they're standing up and they've been doing something. They haven't just been sitting back doing nothing. They're smart. Like, they're here to do something. So like Caleb said the other night, like, I don't know which one of them in that conversation on Silent Mystics, it was that our generation, us older ones, were here to shine the light on these issues. These younger ones are here to actually do something about it. They're moving, they're coming out in huge ranks and actually really, really making a difference. How are you seeing that, ShaRon?
I'm seeing it like that as well, but I'm also seeing our generation speaking up too. I mean, I feel like, I don't know if I am your generation, I'm a little older probably, but we're a bridge. The ones that are in their 70s, 80s, 90s, they lived a different kind of life. And even they are waking up. I think this is so visceral that it crosses the generations. And even though I am empowered and just so grateful that the young people are having their voice and their time, and they have a whole different life that they've lived than we have. I've lived through a lot of different things that have minimally changed or greatly changed, but that pain point of seeing people different and treating them different and having permission somewhere in your spirit to treat them different is not going to be tolerated, I think, anymore. And that's what I see with not just the young people, but across the generations, across the cultures, across the world. We are one human family. And like Erin said, humans will benefit from reevaluating how we've lived. We're so outside of nature. We're just so outside of the natural flow of life, the allowance. And I think, I'm not sure which, I've been in so many Zoom rooms now, but someone said, in a tree forest, there are different kinds of trees, and they're not elbowing each other to try and have their space. They're standing in who they are. The animals stand in who they are. The birds don't say, hey, flower, I'm still hungry. Where's the nectar? And keep poking at it. They just go to another flower because they're aware that everything I need is always here and I will find it. And I think as humans, we've somehow concluded that our world is finite. And I can't allow you to have something because that takes away from me.
Right. Scarcity mode. And it's fear-based again. It always goes back to fear-based. If I allow this one to have this, then they're going to take away, and there's not going to be enough for my family, or there won't be enough for me. They're going to come take my toys away. It's back to kindergarten time, where we're all just so afraid that we're going to lose something. And the truth is, that's just the opposite. Like accepting. Who wants to have a world where everyone is exactly the same, and everyone thinks exactly the same, and everyone did. Like, it's so interesting and so amazing to me that there's so many different cultures and that we all do things differently and that we all look differently. What kind of world would it be if we're just a bunch of clones? I mean, this is what makes it such an interesting planet to vacation on. I'm definitely an alien, yeah. But I remember after Steve died, I said, why? The energy here is so heavy. Why do I want to be on this planet? And the answer came to me very clearly, because that's your favorite vacation. It's like, it's like, that's where you like to vacation, dear. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, I get it. I love this planet. And I love the way that there's so many differences. And that's really the truth of who we are. We are love. That source, that's God, that's our that beautiful part of us that really actually, when we remember the truth of who we are, and that's what we're all here to do. We're reminding each other of the truth of who we are, and when we all remember and we wake each other up and we lift the energy of the planet, then we're suddenly this racism is only a symptom of the disease. The disease is this huge case of amnesia. We just don't remember who we are anymore. And so I'm pretty pleased being able to be here and to be a part of this. And I'm so grateful to people like you, ShaRon, and Erin, my gosh. And Erin, we're almost out of time, and I promised that I was going to give people a chance to, I was going to give them a chance to hear you as far as how they can reach you and maybe get some work done with animal communication, because let me just tell you guys, she's very, very gifted, truly, truly gifted. And if you're looking for some help with one of your pets or whatever kind of situation you're in, you want to, even a deceased pet, you want some communication, this is your girl. So go ahead and give us a way to reach you.
Thank you. I just actually want to follow on from ShaRon, how she was talking about culture and the destruction of culture, and that does follow into hello and that connection with the familiar otherness. That quote, I've been going to equine assisted therapy for like a year and a half now. And I went to a grief workshop, and there was a quote there from Francis Weller from the book The Wild Edge of Sorrow. And it was, there's 5 gates of grief, And the third gate is the sorrows of the world. And he wrote a quote in there from a guy called Paul Shepherd. And I've got it written down here because I can't put it in any better words than what he did. So I'm just going to read it. He says, the grief and sense of loss that we often interpret as a failure in our personality is actually a feeling of emptiness where a beautiful and strange otherness should have been encountered. We no longer live with a sensuous intimacy with the wind, rivers, rainfall, and birdsong. For many of us, the voices of the wild world have faded, receded in mind and imagination. We were meant to have a lifelong engagement with the beautiful and strange otherness. The beautiful and strange otherness is the connection with nature we are all capable of. We are not separate from the natural world, we just need to learn to come back home. Our souls are connected to the soul of the world. Everything possesses soul. This was known to every Indigenous culture, but our ways of living have become corrosive to the earth. Shopping malls have homogenized the landscape of our communities, turning them into a bland slurry. We are depleting with an ever-growing tenacity the complex, multi-layered song of the world and replacing it with a single high-pitched monotone, depositing empty calories, sterile seeds, and meaningless objects in every developing country while silencing forever the voices of hundreds of cultures. Every few weeks, a language is lost, and along with it, a nuanced imagination of a people who were rooted to a place for perhaps thousands of years. Soon, we will only be left with the barest of semblance of the exuberant matrix we once had as the monoculture of modernity plows into the lives of every culture, replacing their traditions with imitations of our own pale expression of life. It takes a heart of courage and conviction, one willing to look into the center of the suffering and remain present. To live a life of soul means living with the sensitivity to the plight of the planet.
Wow. Well, that pretty much sums it all up, doesn't it?
Very nicely.
And that is what Hello is all about. Yes, I communicate with animals and companion animals, but I also want to, in that, show humans that this is our first language. And yeah, so you can connect with me on Facebook. My page is Hello, Conversations with the Familiar Otherness. And there's a message button on that Facebook page that you can contact me with.
Very good. Yeah. Brand new business. I'm so pleased that you've got that available to people. So I will post that link after this. We'll put the link up for anyone that's interested in any kind of animal communication work. And we are so appreciative of you for being here, ShaRon, for sharing your voice, an incredible voice and everything that's happening. And we are getting ready. It's about that time. We're going to close out the show, but we're going to keep the Zoom room open. And so those of you who have the link, who've already asked for the link, as soon as we close out here on Facebook, we will open up the Zoom room to you. You can start to join us and we'll gather. It'll probably be at about 15, 20 minutes, and then we will get the conversation started again. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining me. It's truly been a pleasure. Fastest hour ever. So thank you. ShaRon,
Thank you.
Is there any information that you want to give real quick for contact? Or
yeah, it's very easy. ShaRon at njjl.world. That's how you can email me, and the website is the same, www.njjl.world. The whole family coaching there. You can connect with me there, and you can learn more about No Judgment, Just Love. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We'll see the rest of you. Those of you that want to join us, we'll see you in just a few minutes in the Zoom room. Take good care of yourselves. Bye now. Once I get my notes.